Take a look at your forearm. You are covered in millions of follicles, just like a chimpanzee, but they are nearly invisible to the naked eye. We are the only primates on this planet that decided to strip down to our birthday suits. Why would evolution trade the most effective all-weather insulation in the animal kingdom for bare, vulnerable skin? It turns out losing our fur wasn't a fashion choice. It was the single most important evolutionary upgrade that allowed us to dominate the Earth. To understand why we went bald, we have to look back about 3 million years. Our ancestors, the Australopithecines, were living in the dense, shaded forests of Africa. They were covered in thick, dark hair. It worked perfectly for the environment. But then the climate shifted. The forests began to shrink. Vast, open savannas started to spread across the continent. Our ancestors were faced with a choice: stay in the shrinking forests and compete with everyone else, or move out into the scorching, open plains. They chose the plains. But the plains presented a massive problem: heat. A chimpanzee in the midday sun of the African savanna would suffer from heat stroke in less than an hour. They are built for short bursts of speed, not long-distance endurance. We, however, are built differently. We are the world's greatest marathon runners, and it all comes down to the skin. When you run, your muscles generate heat, a lot of it. If you have thick fur, that heat gets trapped against your body. You overheat, you stop, you die. But if you have bare skin, you can do something that no other primate can do quite as well. You can sweat. Evolution didn't just strip our hair, it turned us into hyper-efficient cooling machines. We developed eccrine glands. These glands produce a watery secretion that sits on the skin and evaporates. Evaporation is a physics-based cooling system that keeps our internal temperature stable even under the relentless African sun. But there is a catch. To make sweating work, you need a high surface area to volume ratio. You need a lot of skin exposed to the air. As our ancestors began to travel further, walk upright, and hunt, the selective pressure to shed the fur became overwhelming. This is what scientists call the persistence hunting hypothesis. Think about a gazelle. A gazelle is faster than you. It's faster than an Olympic sprinter. In a sprint, a human loses every single time. But a gazelle has a major disadvantage: it can't sweat. It has to pant to release heat, and when it pants, it has to stop running. Our ancestors realized they didn't need to be faster, they just needed to be consistent. They would chase a prey animal for hours in the midday heat. The animal would sprint, overheat, stop to pant, and then have to run again. The human would just keep walking, hour after hour, sweating, cooling, and closing the gap. Eventually, the animal would collapse from heat exhaustion. That was dinner. By losing our fur, we essentially weaponized the sun against our prey. But there is a secondary benefit to the lack of hair: parasites. Think about the life of a chimpanzee. They spend hours grooming each other. It's not just social bonding, it's pest control. Ticks, lice, and fleas thrive in dense fur. These parasites carry diseases that can wipe out a tribe. By going bald, we effectively sanitized our bodies. We became cleaner, healthier, and less prone to the outbreaks that plagued our furry cousins. Now, you might be wondering, if being hairless is so great, why don't other animals do it? Why aren't lions or wolves running around naked? Because it is incredibly expensive. First, there is the energy cost. Your skin is your largest organ. It needs constant maintenance. When you lose your protective fur, you lose your primary barrier against the sun's ultraviolet radiation. This is why we developed dark skin rich in melanin to act as a natural built-in sunscreen. As humans migrated out of Africa into northern latitudes with less intense sun, our skin lightened to allow for the absorption of vitamin D. Second, there is the cold. Without fur, you are at the mercy of the wind and rain. This was the turning point that forced us to become intelligent. We couldn't survive the ice ages with biological hair, so we invented it. We developed the ability to hunt, skin animals, and wear their fur instead. We became the only animal that can change its coat whenever it wants. We don't have to wait for an evolutionary cycle to grow a winter coat. We just grab a parka. This leads us to a fascinating irony. We lost our fur to become better at physical endurance, and that physical endurance led to our survival. But then, our brains grew larger to manage the complex tasks of hunting and tool making. Once our brains got big enough, we didn't just rely on our bodies anymore. We started building shelters, making fires, and stitching clothes. We essentially offloaded our evolutionary survival traits onto our culture. We out-evolved our own biology. Some biologists, like the British zoologist Desmond Morris, have suggested another reason for our lack of hair: sexual selection. In his book, The Naked Ape, Morris argues that once we started walking upright, we exposed the front of our bodies. We became visual creatures. We developed facial expressions, subtle skin signaling, and even the hair we kept, like on our heads, to signal health and maturity to potential mates. Think about it. We are the only primate that hides our skin with clothes most of the time, yet we are obsessed with the skin underneath. We cover ourselves in makeup, tattoos, and fabrics to signal our status. The skin became a canvas for human communication. But back to the science. When exactly did this happen? Genetic studies suggest we lost our body hair somewhere between 2 and 3 million years ago. This aligns perfectly with the rise of the genus Homo. It was the birth of the marathon runner. It was the beginning of our dominance. There is another piece of the puzzle that often gets overlooked. The loss of hair was inextricably linked to our brain growth. Brain tissue is incredibly metabolic heavy. It consumes 20% of your daily calories despite being only 2% of your body weight. To fuel that brain, we needed high-quality food like meat and cooked tubers. To get that food, we needed to hunt over long distances. To hunt, we needed to sweat. To sweat, we needed to be hairless. Every single human characteristic, from our long, spindly legs to our lack of fur, is a physical testament to our history as endurance hunters. But look at us now. We spend most of our lives indoors. We use central heating in the winter and air conditioning in the summer. We are the most insulated, protected, and artificially comfortable humans to have ever walked the earth. We have completely negated the original purpose of our hairlessness. We don't need to sweat to survive a hunt anymore. We just open a fridge. Does this mean we are evolving again? Are we becoming a species that no longer needs its own biological adaptations? Perhaps. But consider the cost of that comfort. We are physically weaker than our ancestors. We are less resistant to extreme environments. We have traded our evolutionary durability for a world of convenience. We are essentially aliens on our own planet. We occupy every climate, every biome, and every altitude, but only because we carry our own mini-environments with us in the form of clothes and buildings. The story of our lost fur is the story of how we stopped being part of the food chain and started being the architects of our own reality. We decided that if we couldn't adapt to the environment, we would make the environment adapt to us. We are the only primate that feels the wind on its skin. We are the only primate that feels the chill of the morning and the heat of the noon through the lens of our own design. So the next time you put on a jacket, remember that you aren't just getting dressed. You are continuing a 3 million-year-old tradition. You are a hairless, sweating, endurance-running ape that took over the world by refusing to accept the limits of biology. The question isn't why we lost our fur. The question is, what are we going to build next? We have already stripped away the physical barriers that nature gave us. What else will we strip away, and what will we replace it with? We have mastered the art of being human, but we are only just beginning to decide what that actually means. Are we at the finish line of our evolution, or is the most important part of our transition still ahead of us?